from east to west, heroes are set, seeking glory in the greatest of events. There are knights on noble steeds, those who will bring them to their knees. There are monsters to test their mettle at every turn. Legends will rise based on their merits. There's even pirates riding parrots. It's the grand tournament.
All right, welcome back everyone to the SLTV StarSeries Hearthstone Season 1. We're just done casting the match between Firebat and Lothar. Firebat reverse sweeped his opponent in a pretty crazy patron versus patron at the end there, and now we're going to be casting the winner's match.
Yeah, it's going to be Firebat versus Kucha. Kucha looked amazing in his first match. Plus, got some nice RNG there in one of the turns off a Ram Wrangler. Got a King Crush to help push him over the edge to win that match.
Esports, basically. So what's really cool, though, about the mid-range hunter deck that we saw is that the Beast Hunter is actually making its way into, it's true. Like, it's happening, finally. Like, we're seeing Beast Hunter become a thing. No, it's not using Bestial Wrath. It's not using the Stable Master. Of course, like, the new minion that gives something immunity. Like, I love those cards. But they're, of course, for the time being, at least, not viable. But we're seeing more Beasts being included in the mid-range hunter list. Of course... it's not quite the full beast package. There's still shredders running around, and there's a lot of cards that don't, like Mad Scientists, that are just kind of core to it. But it's nice to see that Beast Hunter is, taking a bigger role, because it's very thematic of the class. So I kind of like that list from Kucha.
Yeah, it's nice to see not just new cards, but new decks, like new takes on decks coming out. We've seen the Secret Paladin deck, and that seems to be like one of the only ones that's really been showing up. Besides like a new card and like this seems like a new strategy that's coming out as well, and I'd love to see more of it. We've seen some new cards popping up. Like I saw Echo Mage during an event this weekend that had was it Frost Giant? Is that the name of the new one?
So like the thing is that this is I think it was the initial deck list was coined by Neville's from Root, which is actually a teammate of Oskaka. So Neville's he's a great Echo Mage player. I would almost say the best Echo Mage player in the world, hands down. He's played more of it than probably anyone I've ever seen. And the Frost Giant list that he was running was kind of different from the one that we saw from Rage over the weekend against Reynad. That's where we saw it kind of shine in the best of probably like the best mage versus mage matchup I think I've ever seen in a long time. But the deck was very different, and Echo Mage making its way back in the metagame, at least on the competitive level, would surprise me, but it's a great ladder deck, and I think it's going to give you that surprise factor in maybe a smaller, set of games, like a best of 5. You might be able to get a game with it, but in the team league format, that might be, of course, a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it's good against decks like Grim Patron, so if you can snipe that matchup in some spots, it's great. As you said, way better ladder deck. Now, have you ever cast a match like that before in your career where it's,
I have cast, like, Freeze Mage and Echo Mage are probably the two decks that I like the most. Echo Mage I understand more than I could, like, than pretty much any other mage archetype, funny enough. I don't like Tempo Mage because I'm always, playing the trading game where very often I shouldn't. It's kind of like the zoo play where you make trades that sometimes are subpar. Tempo Mage feels a bit like that to me. I don't like the volatility of it, the near inconsistency. Sometimes you don't get the good secrets, you don't get the Mana Worm. Flame Wakers suck, and I don't like it. But Echo Mage is probably my favorite mage deck across the board.
Oh man, I would have loved to have cast that match with you. I've got some experience with Freeze Mage, and that was a well-played match by both players. It was awesome to see it pan out, but it's like a 55-minute game. I mean, both players were in fatigue for multiple turns. They had to go through their decks, and you saw how good they weren't understanding what was going on. You saw people, not even use Arcane Intellect from like turn 4 and on. There were multiple turns where they could have played an Arcane Intellect and it would have been fine. But understanding that, hey, I just don't need to draw these cards because I'm going to eventually draw them, and then I might die because of the fatigue. I mean, you get to see so many small, intricate plays. And then there's like the 6-turn window where nothing happens but hero powers back and forth. Maybe someone plays one card, but you have to be really careful in certain spots. I mean, those games just so unbelievable. They're so one of a kind in this game. You only find it every now and then.
And what's really interesting is that some people say, I wish the metagame just slowed down to a crawl, and that's all we saw, like those control decks. Truth is, I think people maybe underestimate how dull it gets over time. It's a great thing to see once in a while. But Hearthstone's a game that has, much faster decks that work well. And even though you would like to cut all the aggression out of the game, you'd end up with way too many lengthy games. So it's great to see once in a while, and I'd love to see Echo Mage make its way into the meta. But, pure Echo Mage metagame would be like like absolute hell. I
Yeah.
wouldn't. I would never. I would never. It's like fatigue decks, right? Like when they cropped up, it's a great novel thing. But
Be
like,
fatigued for us, like,
right? Like the casters, at least the casters and the viewers, I think at some point you're just kind of staring at the screen. It's a winning strategy, but it's just kind of dull to watch.
yeah, you would
Anyway,
start and match would go on into the next day. Like,
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we had like the triple fatigue lineup like Shocky brought once. Oh my
yeah.
god. This made me cry.
Now,
So the lineups from the players, I'd like to discuss them a little bit because Kucha again is the only player who did not bring the Druid. He brought Hunter instead, and Firebat is the only player who didn't bring Paladin. So they've kind of got their own little lineup there.
yeah, he's got Rogue instead, and we saw him, lose 2 games right away with Rogue, and then he got the win and got the reverse sweep against him here. But you can see him lead off of Rogue yet again, and you gotta like Rogue's matchup pretty decently against most of these Paladin decks. Things like Blade Flurry and Phantom Knives against like, Muster for Battle. These are some great weapons to deal with what the Paladin deck can do.
Yep. So we're gonna see the Rogue versus Pally. We've seen it earlier. I think Firebat ended up, beating Lothar with it, or no, Lothar did take the game at the end, right? Yeah, Firebat ended up losing, if I'm not mistaken, to the Paladin deck twice, and then ended up getting all his wins against Patron. So the deck didn't look like it was going to be bad, I think, against Paladin. We discussed, the edges that the Rogue deck has in many cases, but you really need to have those saps.
Yeah, you really need to be able to take care of a Mysterious Challenger that's gigantic, and he could not have been prepared for Mysterious Challenger into Dr. Boom. I mean, that is unbelievably crazy, and what an insane curve. I mean, Rogue has a problem with either one of those cards, and then you just couple them both into the same deck and have them happen back to back. I mean, that's a real big problem.
And have them come back to life? Hello, that sounds pretty sweet. I mean, if this doesn't die this turn, then there's a chance that Kucha just goes for like a redemption play.
Yeah,
I
no,
wouldn't
I
even
can
be
definitely
surprised.
see that.
It's like it's so solid. But the thing is, if you redeem, wow, I can't believe I said that. If you play redemption, aka you redeem, I don't think that's the word I'm looking for. It kind of is, but it just sounds so off.
It works.
If you do it, then you can't play your hero power for a long time because then you might just waste it. So you'd have to at least wait for revenge in that case.
Yeah, he's just gonna instead try to curve out here with Knife Juggler. Not something I mind too much. It's a fine play here. Again, as you said, if he might change his mind, but if he does do the redemption, it does kind of bottleneck him and what he can do for the next couple turns. I liked that point that you brought up.
So the one thing that's nice though about redemption is that he could have kept it for turn 3 juggler redemption. And what that does, and that's really awesome, is that you end up like you pass your turn 2, right? Like you play like Noble Sack this turn just to deal 2 damage to the rogue's face just because like you don't care. And then on turn 3 you go juggler redemption. Then he's stuck with juggler and the shielded mini bot, both of which would possibly come back to life. That's when things get a little hairy.
Yeah, Muster for Battle's going to get a ton of damage here. Firebat does have a Phantom Knives to help clean this up, but he's about to take a lot of damage over the next couple turns because he's going to have to use his face as well to help clean this board up.
Oh no, just Blood Mage Blade Flurry. You're golden here. Yeah, no choice. I don't think he's got much of a choice, to be honest. Unfortunately for him, he kind of has to use the Blade Flurry here. But the good thing is, he keeps the Blood Mage. That's going to take an attack away from the Light's Justice to the face. Unless Kucha decides to go all in and plays the True Silver Champion and starts smorking right away.
That would be a pretty aggressive play, but his hand is actually like not very good to deal with what's going on from Firebat and to capitalize on his early start here. I mean, he's got Firebat down to 17 already. He would love to have some form of pressure to follow up here, like just a Pilot Shredder, just anything to get back onto the board. But again, we're gonna see.
It's gonna be really rough. Like I think what he's gonna try to do is just empty his hand as much as he possibly can. So he's gonna get 3-card draw. That's sweet enough, I guess, if you're hoping to play the long game. But here's the big drawback: the Rogue has the initiative. Is there ever a point where you want to give the Rogue the initiative?
No, you don't want to be giving Rogue initiative because he's going to be able to get something like Violet Teacher or Lotheb into play here, and then it's very hard for you to remove this minion, and they start to steamroll from this spot. so
Yeah.
hard. You know, things like
Violet
Tinker Sharps
Teacher
will-
is a really big problem. I think you expect Violet Teacher more often than not, and even if you've got the Lights Justice open up, you can't kill it. Like there's no way for you to deal with a Violet Teacher. I mean, Lotheb's a problem as well, but it's kind of like a legendary, I guess.
Yeah,
So
it
you
does.
expect maybe less often.
Yeah, it does cut off some avenues of Kuchas. You know, you can't redevelop a muster for battle here. You can't develop any secrets. You know, if you play Secret Keeper, you can't follow it up and make it, you know, a huge minion with like 2 or 3 secrets behind it. So great play from Firebat. He even picks up a sap here as well to help, you know, ensure that, you know, if Dr. 6 or Dr. 7 come out, he's got answers for them.
All right, so if Mysterious Challenger hits, the sap is going to be like he has to keep it for that. Now he's got to play around with whatever secret this is, and he's got to trigger everything, right? So if you want to trigger Repentance, you try Southsea Deckhand, but what waste of burst that would be? So he checks. It's not Repentance. You have to check for Redemption, and you've got to check for Avenge, right? Those are kind of like the next 2 steps.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to check for all the traps here. My video is kind of bugged out, so I don't know if yours has. So I assume he's backstabbing the Secret Keeper here and seeing if he could get one of the secrets to proc here. Yeah.
So he redeemed it, probably daggers up and ends up attacking into the Secret Keeper again, since there's really no drawback. There's maybe an argument to popping the shield from the mini-bot because you've got the Fan of Knives and Blade Flurry. Alright, so he's going to kill a 1-1. Alright, sounds good. Kills the 2 minions.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what you I think this is what you want to be doing in this matchup as much as you can, is just controlling their board and putting the pressure on them to like provide, you know, a big enough threat where you really have to answer it. Plus, if he doesn't have something like Mysterious Challenger here, then you're just so far ahead anyway. You don't have to use this sap, and you can really take over this game in the next turn or 2. I love what Firebat's doing here. You just want to contain them because you don't want their secrets to start getting out of hand.
I love this video.
Yeah, I've also lost video, yeah.
Alright, well, it's coming back up at the moment. We're just going to restart the video feed. Alright, so we're back up. Nothing happened. Kucha didn't play anything. What do you think the proper play is? Because, I mean, if you True Silver Champion, you can kill Lotheb, but look at what you leave on the board. Is that ever worth it? Would you go True Silver, kill something, then Noble Sack Avenge?
Yeah, I think that's actually a chance for you to get back in the game if you do that. If you get to do Noble Sack Avenge plus True Silver, you start to make headway on this board and start to prevent, you know, Firebat from getting too far ahead. But if you develop a Pilot Shredder, you also get some presence on the board as well. You have 2 sticky minions here, and get some damage through because, you know, Firebat is at 13. And if you get as much power on the board as possible, I think that's what's important. And, you know, he can develop True Silver Champion at any point in time, and it's like a charge minion. You know, Firebat generally, you know, the rogue decks don't have a way to taunt up. So at any point in time, True Silver Champion is worth 4 damage. So getting a Pilot Shredder into play first gets you an extra 4 next turn.
Well, that's a pretty sweet card for Firebat to pick up. It's going to allow him to just do everything he wants, basically. Like, it's funny enough that Rogue, like, without preparation, would be a completely dead class. Like, when I think about it, it kind of makes me sad because it feels tough to play decks that don't contain it. But, like, the fact, in all Rogue, I've seen that every single game all Rogue loses is because they never found a prep.
Yeah, I mean, prep is the glue that holds everything together. I mean, they generally don't have as much going on in the early game as other decks, and they need a card to, like, catch them up and get them ahead. And that's what prep does, like, in a nutshell. I mean, it's so good in these decks.
Alright, Firebat's got all the options in the world. I mean, he can eviscerate the 5/4, he can stab the Shredder, and then pretty much win the game from here on out, I think.
Yeah, this is your typical rogue doing rogue things and the Paladin deck not drawing Mysterious Challenger. This is what happens when you leave minions on the board against rogue. You know, they're going to get a ton of value out of them, and they have so many good tempo plays that it's unbelievable. But the problem is, it's hard for them to get that footing, you know, on the ground right away. You know, they don't have a lot of really great minions, and then when they do get one to stick, this kind of stuff happens.
Now the question is, how do you win? Like, you have to play Consecration, like double Consecration next turn, but it might already be too late.
Yeah, I mean, you're at 19. There's a very good chance that you're going to take lethal this turn. You know, one Tinker Sharps Oil, as long as it doesn't land on the wrong minion, even if it does land on the wrong minion, might just kill you from this spot. And is there an aggressive play he can make from here to give himself a chance to win? Like, if he True Silvers, and True Silvers face here, Firebat down at 9, there's no way for him to have 5 burst damage, right? He's not running Leroy. You know, he's not running any cards that can.
I could see him try to, like, kill the Lotheb with the True Silver Champion. And that brings him up a little bit of health above that, and then he can go for double Consec on a board with Violet. And the more, like, if you leave the Violet up, there's a chance that like it's just gonna spawn a 1/1 on the oil that's not going to get the buff. So you remove a minion, a potential target that gets the oil, and you remove, and I guess it like you just don't win with that play as well, because if you trade as this aggressive paladin, you're kind of never putting the rogue on lethal turn.
Yeah, and this way you have 10 damage in your hand. You have the 2 attacks from the weapon plus the 2 consecrations, which the consecrations help clean up the board. So if you don't die here, you're actually in somewhat of a decent position. So I like the way that Kucha's played this. I think this is the only
This is possibly
win.
a win, actually, because based on what we're looking at, like Firebat doesn't have lethal. His board is gone. And if he doesn't die, then that's great for him, because he's got the heal bot to just salvage the health total that he's at right now by a tiny margin. He's going to stay alive with 1 health, because Kucha is obviously going to go for the double consec unless he finds lethal.
Also, Tinker Sharpstone Oil would be lethal for Firebat next turn. He's
right?
Got he's got Prep, Tinker, South Sea Deckhand.
Flurry with the Deckhand, that's right.
Yeah, so Kucha's got to recover this board state here and fade a card as well. But, I mean, I love the way he's played this. He's got himself into what looked like an unwinnable position to giving himself a chance, giving himself outs to win the game from here. So, very well played from Kucha.
So the question is there a reason to attack here? Like, just staying out of, like, potential spell lethals, I guess? Just for the healing purpose?
Yeah, I think just getting to 12 is... and also, if you draw another weapon, it could be lethal. So I think that's like the main reason to do it. But Firebat's going to be able to actually, take away a lot of these outs away from Kucha here, and develop a Violet Teacher as well with a handful of spells. So again, onus back on Kucha to get himself back in this game. I mean, he did it as well as he possibly could, but Firebat just was so much pressure coming out of his hand again.
Yeah, what's interesting is that even if Firebat didn't have Healbot, there's a good chance that he stayed alive, because the opponent has to have Muster for Battle or a good Juggler or the second True Silver, right? Like, that's 3 outs that charge. The rest really don't. And Noble Sacrifice, you've got minions on the board that can actually tank it if needed.
Right. I was about to say, yeah, there's the funny spot where if he plays a secret and you don't have a minion, you can't attack because Noble Sacrifice kills you.
The Belcher would have been useful. Alright, so there's 6 damage on the board. Is that enough to... Alright, so Firebat can get this done, right? Like, you attack with the heal bot, you see what it is, so you tank the Noble Sac. I don't think he's got lethal just yet, funny enough.
Yeah, but he's going to be able to take care of this board just enough. I mean, Sap is going to give him some more time if he wants to. I can't envision him not sapping here, but...
Right. Maybe a king. Kings would be an issue. Like, King's Muster for Battle would kill you if you don't sap. Yeah, I'd be very scared of a Blessing of Kings.
Yeah, and there's a chance he just... Do you think he just plays the Harrison Jones here as, like, just more development, more power in play? I think there's a very good chance that happens as well.
Right, makes a lot of sense. I mean, what else are you going to do? Eat up Elias Justice? You're getting a lethal next turn anyway, right? And no matter what happens. I would even play everything I've got now that Consecration's out of the way.
Yeah, both Consecrations are gone, so he can actually overextend with the South Sea Deckhand, just get in some extra damage here. Plus, it checks for Repentance, which is something,
Yeah, it's something. It does something. Well, it looks like Firebat's going to be able to win with Rogue. It turns out that Rogue isn't too bad off. The only problem is none of these cards are from the new expansion, so it's still the same old Oil Rogue. No adjustments have been made to it. It's just that the metagame supports its playstyle a little bit better than it used to.
Yeah, Mysterious Challenger showing up a little bit too late. I don't even know how many secrets he has left in his deck to get here, and yeah, he's going to concede. So do you think there's a chance that there's a new Rogue deck sitting out there that people just haven't had maybe, enough guts to try out yet, especially at a competitive level, something with like Burgle and some of these new cards that have shown up?
With Burgle, I'd love. My thought is that I guess we're more likely to see a tempo aggro list that really doesn't run anything new. That's the thing. There's very few tools for Rogue, like of the newer ones, that really change everything. I feel like for Rogue to really shine, somebody has to figure out how to use Beneath the Ground.
Yeah, I was going to say
I feel like that card is the one card that needs to be, I don't know, playable in some way, and somebody has to figure it out in order to make Rogue viable, because the value you get out of it is just ridiculous. Like, if you actually go through the...
Yeah, so what do you think about Pirates? Do you think that's a possibility that could happen with Rogue? I know there's a lot of people that want that to happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody wants a control Rogue to come up, right? Everybody wants a Nubarok to show up in a tournament setting. Everybody wants somebody to just use Gang Up and a Nubarok and win against every other control deck. Because that's the only, basically, control, I guess, tool you'll ever need against the control mirror match, if control Rogue ever comes up, it's gonna have to be an Uberok, and I just don't see enough healing, enough damage mitigation for rogues to pull it off right now. So I still think their ability to tempo and then turn everything to the aggression is what's gonna define their future play.
Yeah, it just seems like Oil Rogue is by far the best way to play the class with the tools that we have right now. Until something really changes, I don't think we're going to see, anything spectacularly new from Rogue.
Yep. Well, I can always hope Hyped comes up with something because he tends to come up with a lot of things. I'd love to see some Perdition's Blades come back in the metagame. Of course, I'm loving that card. But it's hard to make work. So we'll be seeing the Firebat's Patron against Kucha's Paladin once again. Firebat's got a semi-decent hand. I mean, he's got the Whirlwind, so muster for battle is not an issue. And it just happens that, hey, he's sitting on 2 of those.
Yeah, you gotta love getting this matchup from the Patron. And I mean, there's not many bad matchups for Patron, but this is one of the ones that it really feasts on. I mean, this matchup's so good for them. Everything that they're doing is just good against the Paladin deck, but Kucha does have some top end in his deck to actually fight against, these really bad matchups.
Yeah, which is why I love Kucha's list. I think it's more well-equipped, or better equipped rather, that fits a bit more, to deal with Patron, because it's curving into Shredders, it's curving into Belchers, and everybody knows just how aggravating those sticky minions are. Of course, Belcher might be an issue, but at the same time, it's feeding them a slime if they're looking to combo even more. So sometimes it's a drawback, but against the field, Kucha's list looks a bit more consistent than everything I've seen.
Maybe the Belcher ad, we talked about this earlier, is just for the fact that when you have Belcher and a lot of secrets, the Patron player can't actually finish their turn. It's almost like a mini Nasmordu little cheap way to win a game.
Right, so you just go like, you abuse the life coach metagame, basically. Right. Oh man, that would be so next level. If Kucha put the Belcher just to counter Patron on the rope, that would be the absolute, like, this is a perfect admission that something has to be done about animations. I mean, if we ask him and he tells us that the only reason I put it in there is because it ropes Patron, then I guess there's really, like, there's no argument.
Yeah, I mean, that would just be like
the
the best next level metagaming I've heard in a very long time. That would just be so awesome if that were even remotely true.
But you have to think about it that way. If you knew that you were going up against Life Coach in a tournament setting, putting Nostromo in each of your deck might be fine. Like, it sounds ridiculous to say, but if you actually put Nostromo, the one time I've seen him play against Nas out of a Sneed's Old Shredder in a tournament setting, it was the single most hilarious thing I've ever seen.
Did he panic?
He panicked and misplayed for 3 turns straight because he let it live and he was like, I can't deal with it now, it doesn't matter. And then eventually, just out of a sigh of relief, ended up removing it.
That's so awesome. Like,
yeah.
I would love casting that game. There's just so much hilarious stuff that could actually happen from that spot.
Right. Yeah, it's just Kucha abusing the rope with the Sludge Belcher would just be a genius move.
Yeah,
that's all.
Maybe that's what it is. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt and say he figured it out that far.
Yeah, he's like, that's it. That's the weakness of the Secret Pally. It's Patron. Let's just put in a Belcher.
Just make sure it happens the turns before they're gonna go off. Put up some secrets. Call it a day.
Yeah, chill Maul. Who plays that? Just play Belcher. You're good to go.
Yeah, you don't need a dragon in your hand. I mean, who could afford a chill Maul, really? No one has that much dust.
Yeah, it's too expensive. Too much for my blood. So, Firebat just playing casually. He wiped the board earlier on. Obviously, you all saw it. It was a pretty clean, clean board. You just Whirlwind, everything dies, and then he just gets a free kill on the Knife Juggler again with a slam, wasting the secret of Kucha in the process. So, again, it just goes to show that Patron is way more than well-equipped to deal with the small early threats from Paladin. It's just that this mid-game is looking a little bit difficult to handle.
Yeah, I mean, I love this aspect from the deck that we're seeing. We're seeing Piloted Shredder, we're seeing the Sludge Belcher, we're seeing Dr. Boom. I mean, it's giving him this top end that some of these decks have a problem with that are so well equipped to already deal with these Paladin decks.
That's a lot of damage if it's on the Shredder. Oh goodness, that's rough.
Yeah, that's going to be hard to deal with the way Firebat's hand is constructed. He'll be able to deal with it next turn, but yeah, he's going to be taking 14 most likely from this card.
Yeah, he might pick up an Execute. I mean, he's got double shield block.
Oh, wow.
Goodness. Kucha with the card to rule them all.
That was the best draw in his entire deck.
I mean, even if you asked him, what would you like to get out of your collection to put into your hand right now that's not even in your deck, he probably would pick the Mysterious Challenger anyway.
Yeah, I don't think there's another card.
Oh, Uther Tree, Uther Tree.
Or maybe the card that doubles your minion's attack or whatever. Maybe it just gets to 14.
Yeah, maybe
That might
Blessed
be
Champion might
yeah.
be better.
I
Yeah,
haven't
maybe
seen
by
that
a
card.
small margin. But then again, what's your follow-up if it fails?
Yeah, true.
Whereas this is just whatever. I don't mind. I'm good to go.
So what does Firebat have to do to get out of this situation? Because this
Find,
looks...
find this execute, mate. Find it like you never found anything before. And find it now.
Yeah, if he finds execute, well, there it is. It's always the last card too. You always have the full sweat.
So you trigger the Noble Sack and then you attack into face. You hope that the second Avenge triggers on the Shredder so you can execute it down. And then, I mean, if it doesn't, life sucks. Yep, it kind of sucks.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually the worst case scenario for Firebat because now the threats are as diversified as possible. Like they're
Right.
all gigantic, so he can't just just execute one and deal with everything. But
The eggs are in like 25 baskets at this stage.
it's regular Easter over here. I mean, we already had the Christmas reference with Paladin.
Alright, so competitive spirit comes up and that's gonna buff the Shredder up to 8 attack.
Yeah,
There's
so
a
he's
repentance left. So he's got 9 damage right now. And he's only missing 2. I mean, that's pretty easy to find in that deck.
and
Not
another
quite.
competitive spirit off the top as well. He's going to be able to play this with a hero power. Firebat's got a lot of stuff to deal with. He's going to have to find the other execute, and then another way to deal with this, he's going to have to find a taunter. He's got a shield block in his hand, so he can cycle through his deck and gain a little bit of extra life here, but... this is
Yeah, without the execute, this is pretty much over, I think. Oh, that's a ghoul. That's pretty useful, if only because it'll stop... I mean, he's going to take up a repentance.
Yeah, he can
Wow.
maybe... Oh, wow, he picked up the execute as well.
Firebat. Nice job.
We may have written him off a little too soon here. These draws have
Yes.
been pretty good. The
Doesn't
last
mean
turn or
he's
two.
won this, because you look at Kucha's secrets with competitive spirit. So repentance falls down, the 1-1 trades... Well, the 3-3 might trade, actually, to get 2 damage in with the... I mean, you have to play the ghoul, right?
Alright, so if you play the ghoul... I mean,
Does it matter? Does it
he's-
really matter?
Well, yeah, he's only got 5 power, so...
Yeah.
Hold on, Firebat might find a creative line from here to, set up possible...
Comeback. Because I
Yeah,
think the
because-
comeback is what you're needing to set up here, because you're losing the long game.
Yeah, he doesn't... He can't play around a card anymore. He can't play around anything else. Yeah, so Armor Up keeps you alive, and he can make it to where Unstable Ghoul
Can
doesn't
charge.
have 1 toughness. Yeah, and possibly has charge.
Yeah, I mean, you can play Warsong Commander, Armor Smith with the Unstable Ghoul. That might be enough to carry you.
And could you get an extra damage in here from Knife Juggler and set up a gigantic board, but...
Oh man, this is pretty rough. So if he goes for Warsong Commander, Armor Smith, the Ghoul, he's getting 3 armor, right?
Right, now...
And he's
got-
popping the he's killing the Juggler.
Yeah, he's got 8 mana, he can't do any Grim Patron things. The Grim Patrons won't get him through this, right?
Not without Inner Rage, no.
Yeah, and he can't 30 Kucha. He definitely can't 30 him from here now. Can he kill enough of Kucha's board?
Oh, if it's Noble Sack, you can get like
Yeah.
1 extra minion. Maybe it'll hit the... Oh my god!
Oh, wow!
This is it! Firebat with a 1 chance to swing back in the game. Wait, what?
Did he...
Did that not reproduce properly? What?
Did we just miss something?
How did that happen? Wait, whoa. It hit the patron.
Right.
Patron didn't replicate, and then it attacked the Noble Sack.
Well, it has 2 damage on it. The Noble Sack kills it, so it doesn't...
Yeah, no,
But...
but it survived the knife.
Yeah, it spawned the second one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it should have spawned 2 more. Because
No,
it should have spawned 1 from the knife and 1 from the Noble Sack.
no. The Noble Sack trades with it. It's a 2-1. And it's got...
Oh god, I'm a retard. Never mind that. Oh my god. Oh god, rank 27 casters. Oh my goodness, ladies and gents. I just had a complete... Because in my mind, I was like, oh, it's a 3-3. It gets 1 off the Noble Sack.
Yeah,
Oh
but it actually
god,
takes
this
the-
is...
It takes that... You forgot to account that it actually takes the damage from
Oh, the shame. Okay, I can just retire right now. Guys, I am out. This is it. Tan and Grace will be casting this for you.
Please don't
This
think
is
so.
exactly what happens. You know, once in a while you get that complete blank and you just think something outrageous happened.
Well, yeah, you just get tunnel vision for a second.
Wow.
It happens to
No,
everyone.
dude, this was more in television. This was...
You just misclicked. It's not a big deal. Move on.
I don't know. All right, so Firebat looks like a defeated man right now.
Yeah, needs another Red Bull.
Yeah, I think he can just pop another one and keep going forward. So he's got the Druid and the Warrior to keep going. Paladin, still the game for Kucha. This has been, from what I've seen, the most consistent secret Pally list around. I've seen a lot of them, and it looks like Kucha might have just hit the nail on the head with this list. We saw Lothar play something very similar, so I think the deck is finally being refined to an archetype that can be brought to tournaments, consistently.
Yeah, this might get me to start playing the deck. I had a problem with it being, it felt like very all in, at the
Right.
early game with no way to really recover. And this deck seems like it has a lot of game, like you just keep talking, so it seems great. There's another thing here that might be going on that we haven't mentioned, and you can kind of see it with Firebat here. How tired is Firebat right now? He's been traveling a ton lately. He streams at like 3 a.m. local time, or like 4 a.m. local time, because that's his time slot. So it might actually be nighttime for him right now. This might be in the middle of the night for him with his sleep schedule.
Hence the Red Bulls, basically.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's living off Red Bull right now. I think there's actually an IV just off the screen with Red Bull in it. It's just mainlined directly
Right.
into him. I mean, I'm pretty sure Archon is actually sponsored by Red Bull, so I'm sure they got enough of it.
Oh man, product. All that product.
Yeah, product placement.
Yep. All right, so it looks like Firebat and Kucha are both going to be playing the Patron Warrior. Firebat as the first player and Kucha second. He's got the Harrison Jones, so that's pretty sweet. And the coin is also, in many cases, invaluable. We were talking about some of the most swingy plays you can make in this game, and obviously the best one is Death's Bite into Inner Rage Patron. So Kucha is really just missing the Grim Patron.
Yeah, or if he picks up an Emperor, having the first Emperor in play is a big deal as well. Yeah, Kucha definitely set up to be able to take this game pretty easily if he picks one of the pieces up that he's missing from here. His hand is greatly set up. Like there's a small chance, and this is not going to be a mistake if he does it, guys, that he doesn't armor up this turn.
Right, for the Battle Rage, because he wants to get hit once just to get the Battle Rage.
Yeah.
However, here's one thing. I've heard a lot of pros, and I mean a lot, say if you don't armor up, you're making a mistake. Because you're eventually going to take that damage, and Battle Rage will then give you even more value, potentially. But, I mean, we've seen games where nobody gets the Battle Rage value.
And there we go. And like Firebat, I think there's a chance he just doesn't attack because of this play. And it's really funny that you brought that up. I went off on HPL once because the 2 or 3 times that we saw people make this play where they didn't armor up, they died to exact damage in a game where they would have won on the next turn, if they just had like 1 or 2 more life. Plus, the thing I say about it is, if you don't take damage, aren't you winning? Like, in most matchups.
Right.
In
exactly.
this matchup, I can maybe see it having a corner case, like in this exact matchup, or maybe like control warrior matchups, something very, very specific. But it's 2 armor. They're giving it to you. Just take it. You have weapons in your deck. You have a Deathbite in your hand. You're going to attack something. You're going to take damage at some point in time.
Man, Firebat with the great draws, honestly. This is the most Zooey this start, I think, is the most Zooey start you can have as a Patron Warrior. Like,
I mean,
getting...
He's just going to beat him down from here. I like this. He's like, you want to take damage so you can Battle Rage? Here you go. Do it during turn 4 when you want to play your Deathbite.
Alright, Kucha's just going to play his own Deathbite and set up... I mean, the crazy part about Kucha's position is that this Acolyte of Pain is scary, and he's already drawn way too many cards. And you need to address it right now.
Yeah, I mean, Firebat's threatening to just beat you down with these cards already, and he's drawn a lot of extra cards. He has removal in his hand. He already has a War Song. I mean, if he can make Kucha play off curve here for the next turn or 2, there's a chance he can like steal this game the way it's playing out.
I don't expect the Inner Rage just because you need it to get that crazy middle game swing. Firebat's just going to just piggyback on this Acolyte of Pain.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's gonna do like what we saw in Firebat's last match, where he's gonna Inner Rage and be the first one to make patrons, and generally that's gonna be good enough. I mean, he's gonna be able to clear all of Firebat's board as well.
Yeah, he needs to pick up that patron, otherwise nothing's gonna
yeah.
happen here. Yeah, this is not quite it, unfortunately.
And him not having it, I mean, he's going to be able to unstable cool and kind of regain some board tempo here, but then that means Firebat will be the first one with an Emperor. Now, his hand isn't amazing for an Emperor, but it's still a 5/5. And Kucha's at 16, and he has a Deathbite in his hand. He might just start really trying to push damage.
This is so scary. So, Firebat has to be wondering, am I just going to get completely swarmed with patrons? What's going to happen is Kucha's just going to try to draw cards off the Battle Rage. Which I like. He developed 2 minions, put them down, they're not too terrible, and then you just get an extra 3 cards.
Yeah. Now this is where we're seeing, the no armor up. It would not have mattered because Firebat did so much damage to him this game, but maybe the game would have played out differently you know, if you armored up on turn 2.
All right, the second the Harrison Jones for Firebat is going to deny that Death's Bite value that Kucha is looking to get, right? Kucha is most definitely trying to fetch for these cards at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, like we've always said, you want to be able to proc their whirlwind effects at the right time for you. Being able to deny them, you know, the turn they need with a Frothing Berserker or Grim Patrons is such a big deal.
Yeah, and now the thing with Kucha is a patron turn doesn't feel good because I just give him more frothing targets. I'm so low on health that I just risk getting completely blown out.
Yeah.
He's going to pick up the Death Bite, at least that's going to be something that he's happy about. Gives him an extra card to enable the Emperor later down the line. And Firebat is going to do the same to him once his turn comes around.
Yeah, so I'd actually talked to this about somebody. Do you think it's possible for Patron to win games in the mirror if the bottom 2 cards of their deck are Grim Patron?
Our Grim Patron?
Yeah, if the bottom 2 cards are actually the 2 Grim Patrons, do you think it can win a mirror?
It can only do that if you've got the Frothings and he overextended with his patrons first, right? Like, he gets patrons on the board, you have your Frothings, you're good to go. But otherwise, it's pretty rough. I think that the win rate is much lower without them, of course.
I mean, Firebat's got the life total where it could possibly happen, you know, like where he has to make a bunch. But like, I don't know if even he'd have to have a bunch of Grim Patrons somehow not kill you, and then still he might be too high at some point.
Right. So what's interesting here is that both players just traded, you know, the execute into Emperor. They both did that exact play. Kucha, I feel, has the edge because the moment he finds his War Song, he's going to be able to unleash the Frothing at one point. The problem is that his health total is miles under that of Firebat, but he's got the Patron plays.
Yeah, and he just picked up a Grim Patron finally. It is not the final 2 cards in his deck, so he's going to be able to set up here for a big Patron turn possibly next turn.
Yep.
And
That's
you see
maybe one of the other
Go ahead.
sides, I guess, of the mirror matches. Like, there's always big plays.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see him set up for what's going to be a gigantic turn next turn. He's doing a lot of counting right now. He's trying to figure out how's the best way to kill him over the next couple of turns.
Oh, is this Kucha playing?
Yeah, Firebat just armored up and passed.
Alright, so Kucha's just taking his sweet time, I guess. Is he going to Battle Rage this after a Whirlwind? Because he's really looking for War Song.
I think
is this
it's very possible. I mean, this gets him so many cards deep in his deck, but no, he's going to pass that up.
Alright. So Firebat still looking for the same cards he was looking for just recently. He's got the 2 War Songs discounted, but no Frothing in sight, no Patron in sight. It's pretty rough. Ah, well, hello. Wow, this could actually be the winning card for Firebat, because he can abuse the Frothing in no way that Kucha can. Kucha doesn't have what it takes to make his Frothing, you know, 30-30.
Yeah. And is Kucha going to make Patrons this turn? If he makes Patrons this turn, there's a chance Firebat can easily win this with the unstable goals.
Yeah, I'd be surprised just because you still wait for the Death's Bite trigger. I think for the most part, you wait for your Death's Bite to be ready to be set off before you go for that kind of play. And you also need the maybe the War Song to get some damage in right now.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is Firebat's at 46, and it's just going to keep climbing. So he has to start making headway at some point in time, because there is actual life totals that double Frothing Berserker can't handle. Unless you make it to
really?
I mean, it's
really?
it's upwards in the 60s.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we saw 2 24 power Frothing Berserkers earlier, and it was one of the bigger ones that you can make in that kind of situation. So, because it's very rare that you see both sides of the board completely full. When you get to start going off with it, it needs a very specific hand that involves Emperor triggers. So it's like pretty hard to do, but it's not unheard of.
Alright, so we probably will see Kucha just unleash the Patrons and the Frothing next turn. You know, he's gonna have 10 mana with a Whirlwind effect, 2 Whirlwind effects, Nay with the Death's Bite. So is Firebat gonna just eat up the Death's Bite here? I have to assume yes.
I have to assume as well, but here's the thing. He could actually use Harrison Jones plus his Unstable Ghoul, running it into the Gnomish Inventor to get multiple Whirlwind effects. This might be lethal with Frothing Berserker, if he does this correctly. I have to do all the math. It's like, you do Warsong Commander, plus the 1 mana Unstable Ghoul, plus Frothing Berserker. That's 2, 3,
and you
4,
can
5,
even stack up the second War Song for a little bit more damage if you want it.
Yeah, well, if he uses 10 for Warsong, Harrison, 1 mana Unstable, Frothing, and which
so you mean with Harrison Jones? Okay.
Yeah, because you can use the Harrison Jones to proc his Death Spite, so he can't use it.
Yeah, and you sacrifice the ghoul on your 2/2.
Yeah,
sure.
it gets a damage on your Unstable Ghoul. Then your Unstable Ghoul runs into the 2/2 Gnomish Inventor,
Yeah, I think that's exactly the play he's going to make. I mean, it makes
Yeah.
too much sense now that you highlighted. That was a really quick spotting by you, so definitely the play. And the amount of damage that's going to come out of this is actually pretty absurd. You just shove everything face, you deny him the AoE.
Yeah.
Even if that doesn't kill him, does it really matter? He's still super low on health and has to play from behind.
Yeah, I love this play from him because like now Kucha has to answer. This is
I don't think
just
it's
short
quite
of
lethal,
lethal.
to be
Yeah, it's
honest.
13. Yeah,
I think
13
it's
not
pretty-
enough, but
yeah.
close. And I mean now Kucha has to answer this. You know he does have an execute, but there's still Harrison Jones and a Warsong commander in play.
I mean, I have to wonder whether or not it was the proper time. Could he have waited maybe one more turn to just let Kucha overextend, or was he that afraid of the double frauding? Because I mean, we saw the Emperor from both players, so Firebat is probably worried about Kucha having combo pieces ready to just be unleashed. You know, double Whirlwind on a board with, you know, Patrons for 4 mana, a really cheap War Song, everything lining up. So that's probably the reason why he just decided to shove right here.
No, that's exactly it. I mean, you know, he's already got an Emperor with a gigantic hand, and he's drawn so many extra cards that you know there's a chance you're going to die here. This is like probably your last chance to make that kind of push. Plus, you have another Warsong commander in your hand with another Unstable Ghoul and a Whirlwind. If you top deck Grim Patron here, you can still finish this game off.
Yeah, so there's Green Patron top deck that wins. There's also the
Frothing.
second Frothing that
Yeah.
would do it. So there's a lot. There's a few cards left in Firebat's deck to do it. A weapon would also be not too bad because you can start pushing face a little bit.
Yeah, this is one of the situations where if Firebat does top deck out of this, people are going to be like, oh, how lucky, you know, whatever. But no, he's been setting up for this for multiple turns.
Right.
Like, this is, you know, me being a poker player, I talk about this a lot. I don't believe in, like, random luck so much in the fact that you make your own luck. Like, you put yourself in positions to get lucky, and there you go. You know,
All right, Firebat with, you know, about what, 5 outs left in his deck. He's
Yeah.
gonna be able to go for the Warsong Patron into the Whirlwind Ghoul. So he's got just about everything he needs to spawn more than 10 damage. That should be it.
Yeah, great played game, both sides here, and very well played by Firebat. Love the lines that he took and the risks that he took when he had to. Yeah, you just gotta wait for all the animations. This just takes forever.
All right, well, let's see the patrons reproduce. That's kind of funny, actually, because that's probably the slowest animation in the game. Like, patrons on both sides, all you need to sprinkle in is like an Armor Smith, and you're good to go.
A dying
Ugh.
Sludge Belcher, and the turn just immediately ends. Like,
Yep, Kucha metagame, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah.
Put in a Belcher in your Secret Pally deck, and you're good to go. So, Firebat takes it. He's 2-1 over Kucha, which is pretty sweet. You know, you win the Patron Mirror match. The only drawback is you've got to go up against another one, which, you know, is kind of difficult. I mean, he's got his last deck, if I'm not mistaken, is the Druid deck, which some people say is perfectly fine against Patron. Of course, you have to ask the Druid players. It seems like like Rogue and Druid, I think, are the two classes
Yeah.
that people identify with the most.
Yeah, I feel that they're the ones that they vehemently defend their deck the most. They're like, no,
Right.
no, my matchup isn't bad. It's actually fine, or it's 50-50, or
Right.
it's actually good. And I'm like, man, so how do you have to
Sure.
lose then? If all your matchups are great, why aren't you like rank 1 every season, you know?
Well, because Patron has 75, and I've got 50 against
Yeah.
it. I've got 50 against the field.
Yeah.
So I guess
Wait,
the
that math
problem...
doesn't work out. Yeah.
Mathematics. Yeah, there's a 15% disappearing out into the nether. But that's kind of what's interesting is I remember there was I mean, Patron has an overall, what is it, like 60% against the entire field, if I think the stats were run recently. You take Patron in an isolated metagame of like high level players, and it's mostly gonna get like 52, 53. Sometimes even under 50 because people, you know, play against it and tech against it. So on the ladder, it's amazing, but then bring it into tournament, and suddenly the results are just way worse than you'd expect them to be.
I think some of it has to do with the fact that you're gonna play mirrors, and someone has to, like, one of the patrons has to lose, so it does kind of skew their numbers a little bit. But yeah, and also, you know, the good players know what to do in those matchups a little bit better too. You know, when the first couple of times I played against Patron, I would rage quit, and then B, I just wouldn't know what to do in the right spots. You know, I didn't understand the matchup enough because, you know, it takes some reps to understand what to do against a deck like that. Gives him the well played because he didn't have because he
Wall
didn't attack
growth.
him here. Yeah, and he didn't attack him. For
Didn't attack for the battle
rage.
rage, yeah. Alright, so Firebat kept the coin. Didn't want to get the shade out right away. He kept the coin for the Powder Shredder, but now this Acolyte of Pain He might just hold on to the coin for what, a turn 4 Lotheb play?
Yeah, just maybe a tempo play, maybe a turn 6 Ancient of Lore if he
Ancient
needs
of
to
Lore,
find some
yeah, I can see
specific
that.
cards. Just gives him more flexibility. Does he really need to shade 1-2 there, on turn 2 and then do nothing on turn 3? I think that's the problem with it there, is the way the rest of his hand was constructed.
What's interesting about this exact position is that, like, keeping the coin for, let's say, a Lotheb here, if he wants to play it, denies the patron inner rage that Kucha might play. What's also nice about the way Firebat's been playing this is he knows the druid struggles the most when the patron warrior, just like against, the mirror match, when the patron warrior goes and gets the patrons with a single whirlwind with an inner rage, that's just, you can't swipe that.
Yeah, the swipe is actually really bad. Now, he does have a hand that can actually fight off a little bit here. He has a Wrath and a Shade, and even Force of Nature can do some job cleaning up, but that's not what you want to be using those cards for if you can avoid it. I mean, it does work out, but like you said, swipe, normally good in most of the matchups. It's really bad in this one.
Yeah, I mean, you can find spots to use it, and in fact, at the moment you do, you should run in, like, as fast as you can into that position. If you find one spot to use swipe in, just take it. Don't even hesitate.
God, another card that's not very good in this matchup.
I think it does a lot of work here.
Yeah, it does work on this board, but I mean, it gives a lot of fuel to Kucha as well, and he's actually just going to take it out of the equation. It's hard to pass up a free eating of a minion here. The Gnomish Inventor gets to stay around.
All right, so do you think we're going to see Drake innervate Wrath on the Frothing, or will we see the swipe and clean up the board a little bit here?
I was going to say, I think Drake and Wrath are a little bit more appealing. Just the fact that you get deeper in your deck. But, God, holding on to Innervate is a really big deal as well here. You might just see, yeah, I like this maybe possible as well, as Wrath into Coin Swipe. Because this actually clears his board.
He keeps the shade, which is really important. It's not even revealed, which whenever he finds the combo is going to be a super big deal. But Wrath is also one of those core pieces that you need to deal with Patron. You can remove one of them almost for free, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah, but Kucha hasn't developed a Death Spite yet, and hasn't really shown you that he's going to go super crazy with Grim Patrons yet this game. So, like, maybe Firebat feels that he can, take a little bit of time off for this. Plus, his hand is actually pretty good. He's got Lotheb and Ancient of Lore and Azure Drake. So, this Innervate's going to get value here later in this game. I like the way he's playing it, plus the Savage Combatant. That card's pretty good. It's not great on this board exactly, but...
I mean, the Savage Combatant is also giving you a Wrath to kill a Patron, right? The good thing about the Savage Combatant is if you get it early for some weird reason, and you probably can do it, you can kill a Shredder, with initiative. You can just pop a Shredder and then deal with it later. And Kuchak's got the Patron. He can go for Patron Inner Rage Cruel Task, that gives him a few minions, but there's no Whirlwind in that equation.
Yeah, I mean, like, Kucha's hand is actually kind of strange from here. I mean, he can, like, Patron Inner Rage set up Unstable Ghoul as well, and that's not terrible. I mean, you've seen a Wrath and a Swipe already out of Firebat, and I think there's a chance that he does something like that as well.
Yeah.
Firebat, I mean, he's starting to set up to be able to go to the lethal in the next turn or two with a lot of push.
Lotheb is just going to seal the game for Firebat. If anything does it, it probably would be Lotheb, just because it denies the ability to use executes and whirlwinds, all the mix of cheap removal that the warrior tends to try to put together at that stage of the game.
Man, let's see how Kucha decides to develop, because he needs to start getting something going. He knows that he's actually still under pressure, even though it doesn't look like there's that much going on. Firebat has a ton of cards in his hand. He knows that, combo is a possibility, and this shade is going to continue to grow every single turn.
Yeah, and you're never going to kill it until Firebat lets you. And here we go. We're going to see some Patron action, and that's going to force Firebat to respond with probably a Force of Nature. That's my guess, because you can clear the entire board with that. And of course, the shade takes some damage, but maybe that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, it's pretty safe. I mean, wow.
Well, does that change anything, or do you still have to force?
All right, well... if you force here, and then you use your shade, it's a 6/3. So it lives through, whirlwind effects, but execute still takes care of it, weapon still take care of it. You're, like, kind of okay if a weapon takes care of it, because then you killed a Grim Patron and you got some damage in and a charge from a weapon. And Kucha doesn't have a ton of cards left in his hand, so, like, maybe you can get initiative back over the next turn or two, but...
He might just keep the Shade stealthed and go for Innervate now that he's reaching the 9-mana count. It's all kind of weird because it's a really awkward turn for the Druid player, because you end up being mana inefficient
Yeah.
with your Innervate, right? You're kind of treating it as a coin as opposed to an extra 2 mana.
Yeah, this is interesting to see how he's going to find a way to win the game from here, because, like, again, like, what's his curve next turn? He has Lotheb. Is Lotheb Attack of the Shade into Savage Roar lethal over the next 2 turns?
Well,
And, I mean,
yeah, I think the plan might just be to wait, because you've seen the first Patron played on almost nothing. So if your Shade can just get to, like, 10, maybe you'll be able to just lethal him out of nowhere by just putting a tiny bit more pressure. Oh my goodness.
yeah, picking up the extra Shade was really pretty good setting up for the next couple turns from Firebat here, but I think he wants to draw 2 cards. Now, I think he's reading that Kucha's hand just isn't good. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, Kucha's got a terrible Emperor in his hand. These unstable ghouls have nothing to really work with, and neither does this Whirlwind.
They could get him a lot of armor. Uh-oh. No Warsong Commander, unfortunately, for Kucha. He's got good pieces, though. You could Emperor this and be very happy with it.
Yeah, this is a good play on multiple fronts. The Emperor is going to set up a big turn from him. If he does pick up a Warsong, he's going to be able to play everything in one turn. Plus, this puts a threat in play that Firebat might feel he needs to answer here. You know, he might have to take care of this 5/5.
Oh, Firebat playing Hearthstone Jones in every deck. He
Yeah.
knows Patron's going to be everywhere. I'm loving this, because not everybody's teched it. Like, weirdly enough, you'd expect in a best-of-5 format to see a lot more of Harrison, possibly even Oozes, right? Oozes are so cheap, and they'll let you curve into, you know, let's say a 3-drop or a 4-drop, depending on the turn you end up playing it. So, kind of liking this.
Yeah, when Mage was a little bit more prevalent, I loved Ooze because, you know, it procs Mirror Entity, which was like a problem for the Druid deck. You wanted a throwaway minion, plus in other matchups you could kind of like tempo it on turn 2 when you didn't have Wild Growth. It's a little harder now that you have Daenerys Esprit in the deck. You know, you don't have room for it all the time, but yeah, I love the choice of just using Harrison Jones in all of his decks here today, because, you know, you have to punish these Grim Patron decks, and everyone has brought it so far that I've seen.
So basically, Firebat, by playing Lotheb and trading here, is saying, I'm going to have at least 4 minions next turn, so deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, he's
Like, because if you execute this, you have no other turn. That's it. That's all you do, almost.
Yeah, I mean, he's got lethal next turn with Savage Roar. Plus, I mean, he's even got his Hero Power, which deals a ton of extra damage, you know, because of Savage Combatant, and he has a Keeper of the Grove as well. Kucha has to deal with this board right now.
Kucha has to drop double Ghoul into Patron and pray that everything lines up.
We just hope it's good, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't exactly know what I do in Kucha's position. All I know is I just pray that Firebat ends up giving me a lot of patrons that he can't even respond to.
Well, does Firebat have lethal with Hero Power plus Keeper of the Grove Silence? Is that going to be good enough here? I don't know. He's a 37.
Well, I mean, if you do that, then the good thing is the Shade doesn't die, right?
It's a 9/2,
so
yeah.
you'd have to silence one of those. The problem is you're giving him patrons, so it's all about calculating whether or not, you know, Shade plus, you know, 2 massive 5/5s is enough. And my guess is yes. I mean, there's no way
Yeah, because you
don't get lethal by using Keeper with the Hero Power Savage.
Yeah, you get extra damage out of the Combatant as well.
Wait, 15? He gets 15 plus another 9. He's getting like 24 damage plus another 10, so 34.
This
He'd
is
only
also
have 34, actually, oddly enough.
Yeah, this is fine. He is actually a little bit short, but he's
Yeah, a tiny
completely
bit
okay with
short.
this because he's going to decimate Kucha's board.
Yeah, he was so short, and the only way he lost was if like his opponent was holding, you know, a good top deck on top of like Warsong Fralding. He was short, but he's still almost guaranteed to win. Right?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where this doesn't win you the game, but it wins you the game. Like, you know, there's almost no out from this position for Kucha to ever win the game from here. I mean, he's going to take too much damage. There's too much pressure coming from Firebat this game.
Yeah, Lotheb was really sweet because if there had been an execute in Kucha's hand, it would have really locked him out of it. Not that there were in any case. And Kucha's now got the deadest patron hand I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He might not concede. You know, there's always a chance you somehow miraculously top deck Warsong and the opponent doesn't have lethal, and then you just go with that frauding play.
Firebat's hand could be like Wild Growth, Daenerys Esprit, and like Innervate, and like he just actually can't deal any more damage to you, and you're not dead this turn, and then maybe there's a chance you like hit a perfect card. I don't even know what card he could hit here to actually deal 24, what would need to be 25 damage. So yeah, I mean, Kucha's just gonna scoop it up.
Yeah, even a Battle Rage wouldn't do it because you have to play Frauding, then Inner Rage it, then Battle Rage 2 cards, and then he couldn't give charge to the Frauding, so that would just be game. So, yep. It turns out It's pretty difficult to win against a druid who gets good cures. The Firebat played that very well, though. I have to say, like that Lotheb play on the turn that came up really allowed him to lock down the lethal, and even using Force of Nature. You know, he uses it as a removal piece against Patron, and still managed to get enough pressure in before he got sweeped.
Yeah, that card is so flexible. I mean, it's a removal spell, it's a kill spell at the end of the game. You know, it's your finisher. It's so good in these matchups too because you can create board states where it becomes a clear here, and then you saw him be very patient with the Lotheb there, like you said, just having it, you know, that one turn that he needs to really push everything to make sure those minions stay in play, allowed him to win the game from there.
Yeah, so very well played by Firebat. So he's guaranteed to move on, and now what's going to happen with Kucha is he's going to be moving down to the losers bracket. Basically, what's going to happen is we're going to see Lothar face off against Oskaka, and whoever wins that match is going to play against Kucha, who's going to have to play a third match today. That's got to be a little exhausting.
Yeah.
If he wins that, he's still going to move on, right? Despite the fact that he lost to Firebat, if he wins against either Lothar or Oskaka, he's going to be able to move on. But first of all, we have to see who's getting knocked out. You know, Oskaka or Lothar, someone's going back home for sure next match. So we'll see that, you know, right after the break. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Don't go anywhere.
From east to west, heroes are sent, seeking glory in the greatest of events. There are knights on noble steeds, those who will bring them to their knees. There are monsters to test their mettle at every turn. Legends will rise based on their merits. There's even pirates riding parrots. It's the grand